out nice and flat. This is kind of going to be an abbreviated version of this whole thing. So you make it nice and flat. And it's bubble side always facing the scarf. Because that's, pardon? Yeah, the bubble wrap is on the bottom. Or if you're going to do it in the dryer, the plastic goes on the bottom. And it's cut a little bit wider and a little bit longer than the scarf. Now this is the wool roving, and I tend to do color on color. Some people just mix it all up, whatever. So I have enough here. I have a lot more than you need, but I want people to think that they, are getting something for their money. So usually I give them twice as much. So you hold it like this, and the staple length of this is about 5 to 6 inches. So you can't pull it like this because you're going to be pulling on both the beginning and the end of that fiber. So you put it out really lightly because the thicker it is, the harder it is to felt. So I tend to keep it really light. And wherever you want the ruffle to be is how you lay out the fiber. And you want it to shrink this way so that I'm laying the fiber out long ways.
Can I ask what kind of wool?
This is merino, and it can't be superwash, of course, or else it won't felt. Yeah, so like this is where the ruffle is. So if I wanted to make a flat scarf, it won't have any ruffle, I would put wool over the whole thing. It's going to still adhere, but it just won't make a ruffle. This one I did a little differently, where I offset the ruffle a little bit, so it's longer on one side than the other. Because when you wear it and you roll it around, it's going to fall here, so it's going to, you're not going to see the design right there. So I'm just going to put color on color here.
May I ask you what time of year were you in Russia?
I think it was 2002. I was trying to.
I didn't ask year. What time of the year?
Oh, November.
November.
Yeah.
There was that.
It was cold. So see how I'm grabbing it, and you just put out about that much on here. And the colors will overlap a little bit.
How would they keep the sheep warm if you were shearing in November?
They just stay in the barn for a little bit longer. Like I've had them sheared in December before because I have long wool breeds, and I used to shear twice a year. Now I just shear once a year. But I would shear in December, and the shearer uses a little bit different blades, so it leaves about a half an inch to an inch on them. And if it's really cold when they're totally naked, like for 3 days, they kind of stay in the barn. And sheep really do put off a lot of heat, so they keep each other warm. So I'm only going to put it down to not quite the edge because I like that drapiness at the end. So I'm just going to put it down, like just down the middle, and keep it real light. So see, that's all the wool I'm going to use, and there's this much left. So people can just use it in a brooch or another design or something. Now these are the wool locks. Actually, that one doesn't have any silk in it.
Could you just define what a wool lock is again?
It's just raw wool from the sheep that's been washed and dyed.
What makes it different than the roving?
Pardon?
What makes it different from the roving lock?
It hasn't been carded yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's just
Right off the sheet.
yeah. So roving has been washed and carded, and it's put on a drum carder so that all the fibers will align, so it's ready for either spinning or knitting. Now this is the wool locks, and it's a bear on your rough hands, which I have very rough hands. So you see, it's in a kind of a square, and it has these little invisible fibers that come up. So
What is this again?
this is the silk hanky it's called.
Silk
They're-
hanky.
They're also there because it's called a hanky because it looks like a hanky. They also make silk bells, which look like a bell hat, But that doesn't work as well for this, but you see these
Where do you
edges.
actually get the silk hanky?
Pardon?
Where do you buy a silk hanky? Is this something that?
Do I get them from Dharma? There was a supplier that I got it from for years, and then I had to find another supplier. So it's either Ashland Bay or Dharma or one of those. I get my scarves from Dharma Trading Company in California. So this is how you peel off the layers like this.
Yes.
And if, you know, this would stretch from here down the block. If, you know, I mean, it's an incredibly long fiber. So I just take this, and if I can get it loose from my hands, I just kind of put it down. And sometimes I have to take scissors and just go through the air like a crazy woman, because it just has one tiny little thread, and then it'll just pull up your whole design.
Talk us through again how wet you get the scarf when you first hold it out. How wet does it have to be?
I just get it in there and wring it out and put it down. It's just so that it stays nice and flat.
But the roving's not wet and the silk
No,
hand?
no.
Just the,
Yeah, because the roving won't come apart very easily
oh, right.
if it's wet. So you won't get to see the finished scarf, because I don't have time, an hour, to roll it. But I'll show you exactly how it's done. So the locks are down, but you have to make sure that wherever anything is on top of it, that wool has to be underneath it. Like if it went over the edge of the wool, it's just gonna crumble up on itself and not go into the scarf. And these are the wool locks. See how long? That's from Delilah,
Say that
the
again
T-swap.
about the wool. What has to be, the wool?
The wool, which is the glue, it has to be under everything that you put on top of it. So that, like, if this silk came over the edge a little bit, it wouldn't have any wool underneath it for it to adhere to, because silk itself doesn't felt. So it has to be with the wool underneath it. So, and if it doesn't, then you would just take more and put it underneath it like that, and just kind of tuck it in. And then the wool locks, I like having, you can separate those out too, but you still want the definition of the lock, so you can put it down here. And I usually have that hanging off a little bit so that this won't felt onto it, so it can kind of dangle there a little bit. And then I just kind of randomly put it around. I'm not very fussy about how it goes on. I just want the color and the texture. Some people make, you know, little flowery things, or, you know, you can do a lot of different designs with it, but I just like putting it on.
So every piece of lock you're putting down has wool under it?
Yes. Except here where I want it to kind of hang off. It can do that. And you can even put wool on top of the silk. So like that. And then
How will that get?
this is tencel, so it's all nice
So the
and,
wool on top of the silk, where's the wetness that's gonna hold that together?
yeah, because the wool is on the top, so it'll go through the silk and onto the wool beneath it.
When you roll it?
Yeah, when you roll it. It's gonna be really, really secure.
What is the tensile do?
It's just like a really pretty glitzy stuff, and I like the glitz.
Is that warm or cool or temperature wise?
Well, I try to have it a little bit warm so that, because it does felt faster if it's warm, but I got water from the back and it's been sitting a while, so it's not, you know, it can be even cool. It's just make sure that it's wet.
I meant as a fabric, is it warm or not warm? Is it more summer weight?
Oh, you mean when you're wearing it?
Yeah.
Oh, it can be warm if you wrap it around, you know, because that wool's gonna be on you. But that's why I left the blank in the back, you know, along the neck.
Yeah, I
This,
just wasn't sure if adding the tencel made it much warmer.
no, I don't think so, because everything is pretty light on here. This is called a browser, B-R-A-U-S-E-R, And it's a German thing, and they use it for when you iron your clothes, you get it wet, you know? So we used to use like a Coke bottle with that little sprinkly thing on it, but who does that anymore, right? So it's a little squirt thing, but it works really well with this. Yeah, and you don't want to blow your design away, so you don't want to go poof, you know, really hard.
You just spray water.
Yeah, spraying water, because everything has to be really, really wet. Because if it's not wet, it's not going to felt.
Can you use regular tap water? Or do you have
And this is regular tap water, but it has soap in it too. And usually I use dish soap like Dawn or anything works. I just use whatever soap they had in there. So. The soap helps it be slippery and also helps it felt.
So you use like 3 drops, or how much soap?
I just usually put in a squirt in a gallon of it. Now, I belong to a felting group in my area, and we had a show in a gallery, and we did the Seasons of the Dogwood. We did an installation called Seasons of the Dogwood, and it was, spring, summer, winter, fall, and they started out to be 20 feet by 5 feet wide. So we had 4 of these tables put together, well, 8 actually, and it was, all the fiber. We did it on tulle netting because silk would have been too expensive. So tulle netting that is nylon, not polyester, and I dyed it green, brown, and blue. And they were all dyed the same, all 4 of them. And then we laid the wool on, and it went all over everything, so there was no ruffle or anything. Well, you could imagine doing this, trying to get 20 feet. So we used, those packs that you use to spray weeds or whatever, industrial size packs. So, we sprayed, that's what we were spraying with. And then this was before we did the dryer method, plus these were too big, it was, 5 feet wide. We couldn't have put it in the dryer. So we set up 6 chairs and 6 chairs, and we all there were 12 of us, and we just rolled our feet, for like 2 hours of doing that. Then you had to do finish work. So then you take either your bubble wrap, if you're gonna roll it by hand, or the other plastic, if you're gonna throw it in the dryer, and you put it on like that.
So you're using the little bubble wrap, not the big one?
Yeah, the little, and it's always bubble side towards the scarf. So the bubbles on the top are going this way and these are going down.
What
And,
about saran wrap?
Saran wrap's a little thin. I think it would fall apart. I don't know what mill saran wrap is, but that painter's plastic works really great, and it's incredibly wide, like, I don't know, 10 feet wide or so, and then I just cut it into strips. So you really want to make sure, this is actually starting the felting process when you're tapping it down. And I just want to make sure that all that water is getting distributed to everything. And then you can start, patting it and rolling it. And then I'm going to lift this up gently to make sure everything is sticking. If it's not wet enough, it's going to stick to the bubble wrap. I tend to get things really, really wet because I really want it to felt and not have to go back. So that was wet enough. Yeah, there's a little bit there. I think that's wet enough. So rub it down again. And then you take a pool noodle that has been cut a little bit wider than your scarf and bubble wrap, and you start rolling it out. And you just roll it kind of tight. And the top one always wants to get a little scrunchy. So you have to kind of keep pulling it. I guess this is paper, right?
It's paper, it's fine.
All right. So it's gonna start getting really wet as the closer I get to the edge of it. I did this in a hotel in a fancy ballroom one time, so it was like I was so worried about the carpet. So see, it just makes this little bundle, and then I'll get my water up here. And here comes the water.
Dallas, can
Yeah.
you put the noodle in the dryer?
Yeah, no, I don't, because that would give it too much cushion.
So what do you do when you put it in the dryer with the painters?
I would fold this in half, like this,
Oh, so you use a
and
towel.
get this wet,
Right.
and fold this into a tube. So that's my, instead of the pool noodle, it's this. And I get this wet because it's also going to warm up, and it's also going to put moisture into it. And this is going to beat against the dryer. Sometimes if I'm only doing one, I'll put some, like those little balls in there. But usually I do 3 or 4 at a time, and they're beating against each other. And sometimes the little devils, I look in there and they're all on the shelf, you know, not doing anything. They're just riding, like, you know, the shelf, going around and around. Right.
Do you put rubber bands around it to hold it?
So I use nylons or old tights because they're really wonderful for that. And then you tie it not into, you know what I instruct my people, not into a knot. Because if you tie it in a knot, you're never going to get it out, and you're just going to have to cut it away. So you tie it as incredibly tight as you can to really keep it secure. Otherwise, the bubble wrap is going to start shifting, and it's going to come off. So I usually just do 3 on these. The shawls I do 5. So tight, tight, tight. And then I take it and I squeeze out the water. And it's really amazing how much water can come out. This is where you get your real workout. Squeezing, squeezing. And then I put it in a towel just to get out, you know, so you don't get soaking wet. And just start rolling. Now, it's not so smart to do it with so much jewelry, but the way you do it, like most people want to do this. You know, you're doing this. You do this for 10 minutes, you are going to feel it because there's a lot of pressure on your wrists. So what we do is, like, I set 1 foot back. You got to get in shape here. One foot back, and then you're moving your whole body because the key is to put pressure on, and that's going to make it go faster. So the more pressure you put on, the more you agitate, the more you roll, the faster it's going to be. And I like doing things efficiently and fast. So that's what you do for an hour. Or let's say for 20 minutes, and then people want to peek at it and see what it looks like. So then you take it and you unroll it going that way, and then immediately you take the pool noodle and put it on the other side. Because what happens is that it's going to felt more in the center than it does on the edges. So you want to put that one that was on the outside on the inside, and then it'll felt better. So you can also do this. This is the way I like to do it because you really get a lot of pressure. So you just put it on your foot, and you can really step down on it, and you can do that for about a minute, and then your leg gets tired, and then you go on to the next one. So anyway, this is like total body workout. I had a class one time, and about a dozen people, and this one woman was like, she was doing it like this, you know. And I went up to her and I said, you know, you have to do it a little bit harder than that, or you're going to be here forever. And she said, well, I just had a lung transplant 2 weeks ago. She said, I didn't know this was going to be so hard. And I said, let me do it. It was so fun. So anyway, hers turned out fine.
2 hours
So,
is a good time?
pardon?
2 hours, you said?
About an hour. And so then you can cheat too. And as long as the idea is for it to go, let's see if I can show. You can't see it from where you are, but the idea is for the wool roving to go through the chiffon. And see how it gets all crinkly? You'll see actually the fibers. You can't see them from there, but you see these fibers coming through. And as soon as that happens, that means that everything is being secured on the top. So it's called the tent. So if you can form a tent with this, the fibers are coming up too much, and it forms like a little V, then you have to roll it more. So it's good to just kind of keep rolling it, but since I am not a perfectionist and I just want to get her done, I'll take it when I know that things are pretty much secure, and I'll take this and just throw it into the dryer. And it's wet, it has to be wet. It's not to dry it again, but it's to felt it down. And when I do that, I have to be there like watching it like a hawk, because it can get, maybe that's only 3 to 5 minutes, because then it's gonna be like this shrinky little thing, you know, and it's gonna be too hard and you're not gonna have the drape on it. So, and then also if it gets too short, what you can do, silk is incredible. I take it and I step on it and I just yank it up as far as I can. I just keep yanking it. And it makes it longer and skinnier. It's wet, yeah. It's wet. It is wet. So, you know, you can change it. And, you know, I sell these and people say, oh, how do I take care of it? You know, like it's this delicate little thing. And I said, if you know how I abuse this thing while making it. And the last thing that's the most fun thing, I think, when you're making these, is you take it and it's wet, and you just slam it as hard as you can, about 12 times, because that is going to shock the fibers and make them just go together really fast. You don't want to do it too many times because it's going to shrink it, but it's always like a fun ending to the class. You know, I just say, think of someone you don't really like or something that is really bothering you, and you just slam it on the table. So that's really fun. So anyway, any questions from